Okay, hold on. Let me send a note to my team to get that page made ASAP.
Hold on. We're going. Welcome to another episode of Meredith with a Y. I am your host, Meredith Willits, and today I have on the show Chris Burres, chief scientist. This guy is amazing. He is the founder and chief scientist at MyVitalC, where he manufactured a Nobel Prize-winning molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experiment result in history, a full 90% extension of life. So we are talking about a lot of things here today, so stay with us. Hello, everyone. This is Meredith with a Y, and I am your host, Meredith Willits. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to talk about sleep.
Yes. I'm ready to jump in. Like, sleep is one of our most consistent testimonials, and I've kind of taken it upon myself to do lots of research around sleep, specific, in my own case, in the case of, people around us who are taking our product. And then I don't know if you've read the book by Dr. Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep.
I saw you had information about that on your website, but I have not read the book myself. No.
It is.
So why the heck do we?
I describe that book as the scariest book you'll ever read about sleep. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books. I don't know if you remember Freddy the Krueger. Like, he scares you out of dreams. Like a spoiler alert, he follows you. But in the case of this book, it scares you to sleep. In fact, Matthew Walker, in the beginning of the book, talks about how, hey, if you were to happen to fall asleep while you're reading my book, I would take that as a compliment, because the whole book is about why you need to sleep and what you can do to sleep. And by the way, if you ever see him speak, he is the most amazing speaker, period.
Well, I mean, I think anytime someone is talking about something that we either take for granted or we don't think about, like, it's just like, I mean, for me, sleep is annoying. I think it gets in my way of the stuff I want to accomplish. Like, I'm always super excited to go to bed. And then when I get to bed, I'm super annoyed that I can't fall asleep. And then I think it's a waste of my time because I could be doing something else. But I also know that I need to restore my battery. So I know there's a lot going on with you. There's a lot. One of the things is you've created this molecule that won a Nobel Prize. And this molecule is here to make us age slower or live longer, or both.
I would say that the evidence is still out, but I think it's going to be a little bit of both, is what I think. And by the way, I do in fact make this molecule. I was not the first one to make the molecule, and so there are three let me jump into a little bit about the molecule. So I'm actually holding up a model of the molecule. If you're listening, just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. The molecule was discovered in 1985 at Rice University here in Houston, where we're based. And the three scientists who discovered it actually won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So a short 11 years from discovery to being awarded the Nobel Prize. The molecule is absolutely amazing. It performs as well or better than the current best material at almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And these are all things that make people nervous, because they think they know we're talking about a health supplement. And I just said inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. Nobody in listening to this, I mean, maybe there's a crazy biohacker out there, but nobody looked out at their car this morning and thought, I wonder what components of my car battery I should be consuming on a daily basis to be healthier. And the story actually gets a little bit worse first. So one of the shapes, there's actually 20 of them on the exterior, is reminiscent of benzene. Now, benzene is ubiquitous in our society. We don't have modern society without benzene. In fact, if you just look around wherever you're at and imagine everything plastic gone, because the foundational molecule for plastics is the benzene ring. The foundational molecule for many medicines is the benzene ring, including aspirin and also detergents. So we don't have modern society without it. It's ubiquitous. except benzene on its own is known to be toxic. It's known to be carcinogenic. And since there's 20 of those on the exterior of this cage, they're like, this thing must be toxic. Let's put it in a toxicity study. In that toxicity study, they gave one set. This was all Wistar rats. One of them got water. That was the control group. One got olive oil. That was a semi-control group. And the other one got olive oil with this ESS60 molecule. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to lived 90% longer than the control group. The single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, peer-reviewed, published research. And I'm really proud to share our lab provided the material, and our lab is mentioned in that original study. And so that, you can imagine, kind of changed my trajectory in at the time. I was what I would call a happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist. If there is such a thing, that's me. And kind of being thrust into, well, on the path, because I really didn't accept this responsibility early on, but thrust me in the path of becoming a longevity expert and hopping on podcasts and sharing research and sharing results and sharing kind of a, I don't know, longevity gospel, if you will.
Yeah. So does the olive oil, is that like a delivery system, like vitamin D needs like a buddy to go in, and like vitamin C and all that good stuff? So olive oil is this thing's best friend and says, hi, body, let's work together to make you younger.
Yeah, so it's something like that. What it looks like very specifically. So this is a carbon molecule, right? It would not surprise you that if you had a little pile of this carbon molecule in your hand, it would be a black powder. And it would be a crystalline powder, kind of like salt crystals or sugar crystals. So you got this black crystalline powder. You could consume it as long as it's ESS60. You could consume it, and it's not water soluble, so it's not very bioavailable. You just end up excreting it out. When you dissolve it in olive oil, you actually break down the individual molecules. You have these individual ESS60 molecules floating around in the olive oil, and we actually sell other oils, but olive oil is kind of the main one. And so it's almost infinitely more bioavailable because there's individual molecules versus crystals. The surface area is almost infinitely better. And that's how you end up being able to consume it. And then I can share our most consistent testimonial with our product is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night, which is why we kind of started this conversation off with sleep.
Always with sleep, Chris. Always.
Okay.
So, but I do have your other products written down. I do have them, focus and energy and all those other things too, which we're going to talk about. So why is it that we are missing this carbon in our diet? Why don't we have that already available to us that we need to go take and ingest soccer balls covered in olive oil, if you will?
Yeah, I like that. That's a good visual, right? A beautiful, delicious, organic, extra virgin olive oil dripping off of this soccer ball ESS60 molecule. Well, let me first start, because that kind of sends me in this direction. This is everybody has been exposed to this. This is a naturally occurring molecule. If you collect the soot from a candle, and usually like grab a candle, you put a cold steel plate over the candle, that black, super black soot that you would collect has parts per million or parts per billion of this ESS60 molecule in it. So we've all been exposed to it. We've all been exposed to it. But in order to make appreciable quantities of it, you actually have to, it's not easy to make. There's tons of it in space, so we're not going to go mine it in space. We're not spending spacecraft to go bring us a bunch of this molecule back. So the way you make it is you vaporize 2 graphite rods in an inert environment. So it's got to be devoid of oxygen at a slight vacuum. So it has to be in a reduced atmosphere. So it has to be in a vacuum. First off, graphite is one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. In fact, it takes local temperatures of the sun to vaporize graphite. So as an example, we have a sight glass that watches this reaction. And if you don't have welder's goggles between you and the reaction, you'll burn out your retina. If you let that light shine on you, you'll actually get a sunburn. So it's local temperatures of the sun. Now you also have to have a vacuum chamber that's good enough so that you could get rid of the oxygen. And then the whole operation is happening at a slight vacuum, which makes it an incredibly challenging thing to make. But you need to do that if you want to have quantities that are appreciable. And remember, That first study was a toxicity study. They didn't think that this would be something that we would need to manufacture in order to put into supplements. They were actually thinking because this molecule makes better inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, that man would be working with it on a regular basis. And if he or she is going to be working on it, then we need to know its toxicity level, because every time you're working with something, you want to know if it's toxic or not.
Right. I mean, I just keep thinking like, I look at carbon as being like, if carbon didn't exist, we wouldn't be physical humans. We would be fluff, right? And so it almost feels like we're feeding the human self, the body self, to make the body self more like it's the thing that makes us physical humans, right? I mean, am I on the right wavelength here?
Well, I mean, I think conceptually, absolutely, right? So we are carbon beings. There is the potential that if we weren't carbon beings, I think we could be silicon beings. Like that's an actual potential thing, because the dynamics of how that atom is able to interact with its environment. But obviously, carbon to a much greater degree. I've worked with people who've called this the perfect carbon molecule. And if we're carbon beings, who wouldn't want to have the perfect carbon molecule inside of us?
Right.
There is a book called The Most Beautiful Molecule, which is about the discovery of the molecule, about the scientists who at Rice University, put carbon in their piece of equipment that ultimately led to the discovery of this molecule. And they call it the most beautiful molecule. It's an absolutely, I mean, it is the first closed cage molecule. Every molecule prior to this had an open end, a dangling place for bonds that could occur. And this one is actually closed cage. It's big enough for every atom on the periodic chart, not all together, but each individual atom on the periodic chart to fit inside of it, which means there's a new symbol in chemistry. You're familiar with the @ symbol, which is from our email address. Now you have this lanthanum at this molecule, means lanthanum physically trapped inside of it, not covalently or ionically bonded to the exterior of it. So I think that's how you know you're going to win a Nobel Prize. When you add language to the symbols to
Periodic
the
table.
language of chemistry, you're probably going to win a Nobel Prize. It's got 6 foot, just to kind of, I could talk about the molecule and its kind of industrial and research applications. There's 6 planes of symmetry through this molecule. So the 6 planes through which this thing is identically symmetrical, which gives it amazing resilience. So you can fire this molecule at a plate of steel at 15,000 miles an hour, where most molecules will just shatter, right? This molecule, I kind of picture it like the ball compressing and then bouncing right back. That's because of the 6-fold symmetry and all of the strength that is in this molecule. It really is the most beautiful molecule.
And so is that, I mean, like we have the carbon molecule, right? So is this like a new carbon molecule, basically? I mean,
Yeah.
is this like a carbon molecule plus?
Yeah, so if you think about carbon and the how it's generally available, you've got diamond, you've got graphite, which also includes graphene. You've heard of graphene. Individual sheets are having a lot of scientific possibilities shown in graphene, and then you got amorphous kind of carbon junk, which is just like it's all thrown together, and then you have this whole collection of molecules called fullerenes. 60 is the most abundant, 70 is the next most abundant, 76, 84. Like, so all of these molecules are called fullerenes, and they're named after a guy named Buckminster Fuller, who is the guy who brought to prominence the geodesic dome. So, of course, this soccer ball shape is the same as the geodesic dome, and that's why they call this a buckyball, right? That's a kind of a colloquial name for it, is a buckyball. By the way, because it's called a buckyball, I really do hope this becomes a battery, because I think having a Bucky battery would just be, it just feels like,
The
I don't know, Buck
marketing's there.
Rogers,
The
right?
marketing's there.
It's already ready to go. So yeah, it's a fantastic molecule, great industrial applications, and then you start bringing it into this into the realm of health and wellness, and it seems to be a game changer.
So you, when doing this, the idea is, were the people looking for it to make people, I know we were looking to make sure if it was toxic, right? We
Yeah.
want to make sure, But then when we're seeing people live 90% longer by ingesting this with olive oil.
Animals, let's be clear, there's a very specific, it's a
Animals.
Wistar rat living 90% longer. Yes.
Okay. Have we done studies on humans? Because humans are now taking it. Are we seeing results? Like, are we there yet? Is it too new?
Yeah, I think a couple things to that. One is we'll never do a human longevity study. You know, if the average human lives 90% longer, the average human will live to 152. And if you're like me, when I hear 152, oh, the oldest human. No, no, no. That's the average human, right? So there'll be people well into the 200s if the average person lives to 152. So it's a pretty phenomenal number. We'll never do that longevity study. We are one of the few. I'll get into the story about us kind of reluctantly coming into the supplement space, because the supplement space is, I think it's politically correct to describe it as a challenged space. Like it struggles with, I don't know, morals. Like maybe is the right thing. You know, I don't know if you've bumped into this. You hear about a new supplement and you're like, oh, I got to try NMN. And then you're like, darn, now I got to try and find an NMN that's viable, right? Like from a reputable source and that I trust and believe is going to actually be NMN. That's how the whole space is. So for a long time, we really didn't want to get into the space of the supplements because in fact, let me tell that story because it's kind of interesting. So this study comes out where the rats live 90% longer in mid 2012. By mid 2013, we start getting calls from this crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers, which I can say affectionately because I am now a biohacker.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah. And so they said, hey, how much of this stuff should I be consuming? And my business partner and I, again, very conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists, what we heard them asking was, hey, Chris, how much of that stuff that you sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, how much of that stuff should we consume? And my business partner and I were like, we think zero. We think zero is the appropriate number. We're conservative scientists. This is used in inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. We just think that you shouldn't be consuming it. And I'm going to add, the research at the time was clear. This is a safe molecule as long as you process it properly. But we're conservative nanomaterial scientists used to selling it into batteries. And so we're like, no, you shouldn't consume any. So we added not for human consumption to our labeling in mid 2013. So think from 1991 all the way to mid 2013, we don't have not for human consumption on our labeling. We add it in mid 2013, and then we would get 2 to 3 phone calls a week, and they were again crazy, wacky biohackers going, "Hey, Chris, my knee pain is gone." And I was like, "You mean the knee pain of your rat? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah. Hey, if my rat weighs 275 pounds and does HIIT training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, how much should my rat be taking?" We're like, okay, so we know what's going on. And my business partner and I are meeting every quarter and we're like, do we want to get into this industry? And we actually didn't want to get into the supplement industry. You know, we're happy delivering these commercial quantities of materials to research institutions around the world. And kind of in this time frame, I actually found a peer-reviewed published paper that said that 50% of the supplements that are on the market that they tested, so they just bought some products off the market, 50% of them did not have in them what they said they had in them.
Wow.
Right. So this is the opposite of what we're doing. We're delivering this powder to research scientists who have an HPLC and a grad student and people who can test it. And they're confirming that we're shipping to them what we promised them. That's not how the supplement industry works. So quarter after quarter, my business partner are getting together and deciding not to get into this industry. Finally, at the latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting taking the product on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. So now in that quarterly meeting, actually right in the conference room right behind me, my business partner are like, okay, well, this is bigger than we thought. We looked back to that paper where 50% of the supplements don't have in them what they say they had in them. That's going to happen in this space. We're a unique lab that is able to produce a high quality product and then test it and then, have exacting standards beyond which, most supplement companies would dream of. And we felt it was our responsibility to get into this industry, this supplement industry. And we did ask ourselves two questions before we said yes. The first one was a moral question. Are we comfortable selling the product? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team takes it. So, by the way, it's not a requirement. You don't have to take it if you work on our team. They just have access to the data and honestly, the amazing testimonials and yes, I will take that every day. And then the other one is legal, right? You have the FTC and the FDA. You got to cross the T's, you got to dot the I's. And so in 2018, we really started bringing this product to market. And I really, at that point, started accepting the role of being the chief scientist at a supplement company, which is very different than being a scientist at a carbon nanomaterial manufacturing business.
Totally, because now you're having people put this stuff in their body and there's a lot there. Then again, my new focus recently has been looking at labels and recognizing that how are they selling this as food just because it has the word sugar in it and everything else behind it is a chemical. I'm like, when did this become food? Like, when did we get here? And how did we get here? It's becoming fascinating to me. I had a gummy lifesaver type thing the other day, and I put it in my mouth. I eat very clean, and I'm like, it tastes like chemicals.
Oh,
and it was
wow.
just and I'm like, this is so weird. Because I hadn't eaten something like that in a while. I'm like, that's so weird that it literally tastes like chemicals to my brain now because I'm so not used to eating stuff like that. So, okay. So we have this thing. As I'm sitting there looking at your marketing, I'm like, MyVitalC would make me believe it's a vitamin C, but it's actually vital carbon.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no. And when I came up with the name, I was aware that there might be some confusion with C, right? But MyVitalC as the brand. And the reality is I was okay with that because this is something people haven't heard of. I want them to understand that it's a positive health thing. Nobody is out there thinking that vitamin C is a negative. Right. By the way, we're actually more powerful than vitamin C, and we can talk about that further down.
Well, I want to talk about too. So you're taking this, you take it in the morning, which I thought was fascinating when I saw that. So it's going to help you through the day, and then you're focused through the day, you're alert during the day, and then when it's time to go to sleep, you actually sleep. There's an idea, there's a concept that most of us are not used to. I was up the other day. I drink decaffeinated coffee. That's because I can't with the caffeine anymore.
Yeah.
And I forgot when I went to Starbucks to tell them decaffeinated. I was up till 3:00 in the morning. 3:00 in the morning, laying there like, sweet Lord, please take me now. I need to sleep. Is this something that we have to take every single day? Is this something you can take? How does this is, and it's liquid, right? You have the liquid. Yeah. Okay. So if you could describe, I'm going to start taking this. What does it look like? Do I have to take it every single day, or is it what?
So let me talk a little bit about one testimonial kind of related to sleep. So this might give you some perspective. Mm-hmm. So my business coach, the way he describes it is he was taking it for 50 years. He needed an alarm clock every day in order to wake up. As soon as he starts taking MyVitalC, he no longer needs the alarm clock. He actually wakes up before the alarm clock. And he's a business coach, right? So he's got late dinners, there's wine, mixers, whatever. None of that matters. When he's on the product, he's actually waking up before the alarm clock. And we'll talk about potential mechanism of action there. And then if he goes off for 10 days, right, because I haven't given him any, if he goes off for 10 days, then
so you're paying him in MyVitalC.
Exactly, yeah. So at that point, he'll actually need the alarm clock again. Right. And then he gets back on the product and he's waking up before the alarm clock. So this is a profound difference in what's going on. I also want to point out, you're right. You honed in on something that's a lot of people miss, which is to take something in the morning and positively impact sleep at night. What else have you ever heard of that you could take in the morning and positively impact sleep? Like somebody told me ashwagandha once, and then I talked to an Ayurvedic practitioner and well, no, you got to take it before you go. You can take ashwagandha in the morning and it actually does it, but you got to take it again at night in order to help you sleep. This one you take in the morning, focus and energy during the day, and better sleep that night. Now, we do know if you get exercise in the morning, that'll positively impact your sleep. If you get exposure to the sunlight in the morning, that'll get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun, and that'll positively impact your sleep. But to take something is very different. I like to contrast this to something that I think is pretty important, a good message to get out there. Dr. Matthew Walker, in his book, Why We Sleep, talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry, right? These are prescription drugs that are supposed to help you sleep. And he makes the point that these are depressants. And although you wake up feeling refreshed, feeling like, actually the real mechanism is there's a chemical called adenosine, and it's actually the ATP, the A in ATP. So ATP is the energy source our cells use. The A is adenosine. As that builds up in our body throughout the day, it causes us to desire sleep. These sleep aids, quote unquote, prescription sleep aids that you take right before you go to sleep, they actually relax the chemical pressure of adenosine. So you wake up without the desire for sleep. Imagine if the last 2 months you woke, and maybe this is this applies to you sometimes. You wake up and you just want more sleep. And then you wake up one day after taking this sleep aid, quote unquote sleep aid, and you don't feel like you need sleep. That would feel amazing. The problem is as a depressant, it's depressing the REM and the NREM sleep that you actually need, the healing and restorative sleep. Sleep is so important, right? Which is why we're talking about it from the first moment of this podcast, and apparently in every podcast. So it's so important, and he points out that these are detrimental. And I just bring that up because the method of action is very different. To take something right before you go to sleep and try and impact versus taking something in the morning. And we can start talking about mechanisms of action or theoretical mechanisms of action, but that's I think really important to share.
Well, I know, like for myself, like first of all, I'm afraid to take the Ambien and stuff like that. It freaks me out. Then sometimes I'll do it like a THC gummy, but then I stop dreaming. And then I read that you do stop dreaming. And I'm like, okay, that's insane. I don't want to stop dreaming. That sounds horrible. When I'm thinking about the MyVitalC, it feels like to me that it's filling in the spaces that have cracks in them for some reason. Like that's how I see it working. I'm clairvoyant. So like that's kind of like how I'm seeing it play out. What is it doing in my body? Why is it working? I'm trying to figure out when I'm looking at it. And all I keep seeing is like there's like a missing, like this finger's missing, and then MyVitalC comes and it like fills in that space so that everything like works better. That's how I see this working in the body, because you do have a focus and energy supplement, you have an exercise recovery supplement, and a party recovery supplement when people like partake too much in the booze side of life. And then of course the one that I love is sleep, because it helps you during the day and then it helps you sleep at night. So what is this completing in me? Like the "You Complete Me" from Jerry Maguire. How is this completing me? I want to understand how this is working, because I do like the idea, and I know a lot of other people, especially women who are going through menopause, our sleep starts to get real wacky. We hormones are all over the place. How is this completing me when I'm taking it in the morning? And then what's it doing? Is it messing with my brain? Is it the brain stem? How is this working inside of my body?
That's a great question. And if you'll indulge me, I'm going to actually kind of walk through, as I was stepping into that role of chief scientist of a supplement company, like what are the things that I was tasked with or that I took upon myself. So the first one is a 90% extension of life a big deal, right? You kind of intuitively know there's no products in GNC that are like, hey, extend your life by 300%. No, that's not happening, right? So you kind of intuitively know. It turns out the next best way to live longer is called calorie restriction. If you restrict your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. Nobody signs up for that. I don't know, like if you have a clipboard and you're like, hey, so starve yourself 1/3 to death.
I have watched documentaries though about people that like they eat the skin of the apple, they eat the berries, like they are living longer. And I mean, the most exhausting thing the body does during the day is digestion. Like
Yep.
I did a 40-day juice fast and it was almost impossible to sleep at night because I had so much energy because my
Mm.
body was not exhausted all the time from digestion. So I am on board with everything you're saying.
Yeah, well, I think there's another component to just not utilizing energy for digestion. You're also, from an evolutionary perspective, you're starving and you need to be finding food. And if you don't get mental clarity and energy to find food, you will die, right? So this is like your body pouring into energy and focus these things so that you can go, recruit food, whether it's picking berries or whether it's hunting something and getting it, which is a more nutrient dense source, calorie dense source of food. So I think that's very important. So calorie restriction, 30% extension of life, really well documented. In this case, we're talking about a 90% extension of life. Of course, it's in Wistar rats. The next piece was like, hey, how does the medical community think about aging? And they tend to think, like, they don't all agree, but they tend to think of it as an oxidation and an inflammation process, right?
Mhm.
There's even a word called inflammaging because inflammation is tied to so many diseases related to aging. So inflammaging. And so let me kind of address those. In terms of antioxidant, there's an ad hoc study on the web that shows us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's peer-reviewed published research that shows us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So I live in Texas. I like to put a big old check mark on that particular, on the antioxidants check box. In terms of anti-inflammatory, you have to be really careful when it comes to the FDA. The FDA equates conversations about inflammation with the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging. So, arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancer. So, if I tell you, hey, we address inflammation, the FDA hears me claiming I cure cancer, I cure arthritis, I cure. Obviously, we're not doing that. There's so much research that would need to go in that direction, like tons of research. What the FDA will allow us to say is that we address inflammation at least as it's related to exercise-induced inflammation, right? So we've all had a tough workout, maybe just walked further than we normally do and felt that sense of inflammation in our body the next day. We absolutely address that type of inflammation. And I'm gonna throw out there, we're in the middle of what I call an ad hoc study on HSCRP. HSCRP stands for high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's an inflammatory marker in our bloodstreams, all right? So you can do a blood drip test and you're going to identify what's your HSCRP. The reason we're doing this ad hoc study and with intentions of taking this into a peer-reviewed, placebo-controlled, double-blind study is because we had this doctor, Lane Young, came up to us. We were at the Las Vegas A4M Longevity Fest, and we had a booth, and he came up, and I had actually had a conversation with him back at the biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's biohacking conference. And I actually recorded a video of this because the first time he said it, I was like, Dr. Young, I have to record this. And he said, Chris, I don't care if you're male, female, pre-surgery, post-surgery, cardiovascular disease, otherwise healthy, your product will take people who have an elevated HSCRP, and his example was 9, and bring it down into normal ranges into 4 to 8 weeks. Not only that, but in terms of HRV, so heart rate variability and sleep, he's seeing improvements of 20 to 60% in both of those values, right?
Wow.
Back to sleep. And so we're actually in the process of doing an ad hoc study on HSCRP. Just a note, I had a conversation with an oncologist about that particular video. And he said, if you have an hsCRP of 9 as an oncologist, I assume you have cancer until I prove otherwise. Like that's
Wow.
how inflamed that number is. And in the case of Dr. Young, he actually had been like none of his protocols were moving that hsCRP number. It was actually only when he got onto the MyVitalC that dropped in 4 to 8 weeks, dropped it into normal ranges. So we're in the process of doing that particular study. Now, very interesting, great antioxidant, great. And I can talk to you why it's a great antioxidant. Let me just pause right here. Way back in the 90s, when this molecule was discovered, it was understood that it could hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of this cage, right? So that is a thing that makes it an antioxidant. So we understand that. But how is it potentially positively impacting inflammation, at least as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation? And we folded this into what we call our BOSS theory. So this is the buffering oxidative stress system. So there's peer-reviewed published research that shows this molecule gets into the mitochondria. And like I just said, the molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. Here's how the BOSS theory plays out. Mitochondria, right? There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for blood cells, which have 0, and your brain and neurons, which actually have 2 million. That's how much energy our nervous system uses relative to our other systems. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. And like every power source you're familiar with, there's a negative byproduct, right? Your car going down the road has exhaust. Your power plant has smoke coming out of the smokestack. In the case of mitochondria, it's got reactive oxygen species. These are things, little positively and negatively charged particles that if they are left to their own devices, I like to picture them like little bumper cars. Everything they're smashing into, they're rusting, they're causing oxidative stress, oxidative damage. Internal to the mitochondria, you actually have 2 antioxidants to manage those reactive oxygen species, and that's glutathione and melatonin. By the way, I like to pause here. Melatonin is the sleep hormone. Our most consistent testimonial is sleep. There's some nice parallels. So what happens when you stress a mitochondria? Right, first off, how do you stress a mitochondria? Tough workout, exposure to EMF radiation, exposure to too much sunlight, smoking, drinking, living life in this modern era.
I was just say, so being an American.
Yeah, exactly. And so that'll stress mitochondria. What happens when it gets stressed is it starts producing more energy and more reactive oxygen species than can be managed by those antioxidants. And that's when they run around and they do damage. And that's where we believe this ESS60 molecule comes in. Again, we know from peer-reviewed published research, it gets into the mitochondria. So we believe it holds on to the negatively charged reactive oxygen species so they can't run around and do any damage. And then when that mitochondria replenishes the glutathione and the melatonin, then it can manage them properly. And I have a fun analogy, and I'm sure you'll agree, all good biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras. I think a lot of biology happens at Mardi Gras. So it's the end of Mardi Gras, and you have these drunk reactive oxygen species on Bourbon Street, smashing cars, windows, doing oxidative stress, oxidative damage. And the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and melatonin, come on to Bourbon Street, handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species, and get them off of Bourbon Street. But what do they do when they get overwhelmed? They take these reactive oxygen species and they stick them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of this ESS60 molecule so they can't do the oxidative stress and oxidative damage. And then when the New Orleans Police Department can replenish the glutathione and the melatonin, it can then handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that's why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss, a buffering oxidative stress system. And in reality, if you are reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you should have head-to-toe testimonials. And guess what we have? We actually have head-to-toe testimonials. And that was part of my role as the chief scientist. What is driving these systemic, multi-system positive testimonials? And even in the literature, like what's going on in the literature as you test this molecule on different aspects of animal physiology and the results are positive, what's going on? Well, again, If you reduce the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you're going to reduce oxidative stress. You're going to reduce inflammation, at least as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation, and that those upstream benefits are kind of borne out in the testimonials that we get.
So that makes sense. So basically, it's a giant vacuum cleaner of garbage inside the body, more or less.
Yep.
It just kind of a nice, easy way to put it. So let me ask you this. What can I do today? What can the listeners do today, or the watchers that are watching right now? What can we do today outside of or including with the MyVitalC that you're selling? What can we do in our daily life to make ourselves live longer, be more vital, etc.?
Well, let me give you this one last analogy, because I think it's valuable, and go into kind of that advice, which is I like to picture our physiology as like a nice prairie, right? You got prairie flowers and prairie grasses flowing in the wind. And the reality is stress is good for us. If we don't stress ourselves, we become problematic. And a perfect example, when astronauts go into space, they don't even have to stay there very long. They come back and they're dumpster fires, right? Their bone density is down. Their immune system is compromised. So stress is good. That's the stress of gravity that they're missing. So stress is good. So I picture a gentle rain on this prairie as being the stress, the natural, good, positive stress. But what happens when you have one dark, ominous cloud that's just pouring like a faucet in one spot in that prairie? It's actually going to it'll actually bore a hole in the prairie because it's impinging in that one spot. And that's where I like to picture this ESS60 molecule as a sponge that you can put between that dark cloud and the prairie to protect it. Now, it's important to note, if you don't manage that dark cloud, eventually the sponge fills up and starts pouring back on the prairie again. So you do have to manage this. This is great for intermittent stress. And then once that dark cloud is managed, like you finish that HIIT workout, that re-HIIT workout, you get off of your device that's causing you stress, and now you can just I picture squeezing that sponge onto the prairie without doing any damage. So I kind of tell that story because you do need to be stressing yourself. So you want to think about living longer. You got to eat right, you got to sleep right, and you got to exercise right. I actually had the privilege of interviewing 55 experts for a longevity summit, and was able to kind of collate all of the data. One of the things that I asked every one of them was, what are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets? We'll call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts for right, for longevity and a long health span that you would share. And then I aggregated that data, and it's actually pretty cool. So I have a chart here. And the chart is looking at sleep, exercise, diet, and mindset. These were the first ones that I really honed in on. And I'll tell you, this is kind of an interesting process. They 33.3% mentioned sleep, 52% mentioned exercise, and then 52% also mentioned nutrition. And then finally, 46 mentioned mindset. And my first thought was like, man, how do you have everything above sleep? I mean, we started this podcast on sleep. It has to be more important than everything else. And so I was like, I think the experts got it wrong. And then I started thinking about it, and I do think they got it wrong, but I don't think they gave enough importance to mindset, right? If you know you need to put your device down, you need to charge it in another room, you need to put on blue light blocking glasses, and you don't have the mindset to make those changes, you're not going to make those changes for your sleep. If you know you need to not eat the sugary thing that tastes like chemicals now, glad that it tastes like chemicals, and you don't have the mindset to do that, it's not going to change. And if you don't have the mindset to exercise, to make sure you're getting the 4 modes of exercise that you need, which are something focused on your VO2 max, something focused on resistance training. You should be sore once a week, not like sore for days, but you should know that you did a tough workout. And then balance and flexibility. If you don't have the mindset to make those changes, then you're not going to make those changes. So I think mindset is just by far, I hate to say this, I think it's more important than sleep, because it can actually help you sleep.
Because it'll actually get you there. Yeah, I forget what I had somebody on the podcast, and it was like the reptilian brain. Like, yeah, I do want to go downstairs and eat a dozen donuts, but that's the reptilian brain telling me to do that. Or, yeah, I don't really feel like going to work out, but that's the reptilian brain saying, just like, you have to have the higher mind. So the higher mind has to come in and say, we get it.
Yeah.
it sounds fun. However, we need to do all the things that are going to create, and like you were saying, lifting weights, that is a stress. Digestion, that
Yeah.
is a stress. The good stress. I think one of the things I've been working on lately is I just had surgery 3 weeks ago, about 3.5 weeks ago, and I was gearing up to be off for a long period of time, like, because I just wasn't sure how I can like sit here, be comfortable, work again. And
Mm.
so I was like doing tons of podcasts, like tons of like getting so much ready and prepared. And then I came out of the surgery and I was like, holy shit, I've been running from the bear. Like the bear is
Mm.
chasing me. And so like now that I've been post surgery, I'm like, okay, this is what I should feel like. And this morning I felt that the bear's chasing me. And I'm like, okay, the bear is not chasing you. You're going to do a podcast. Like we get so wound up in the United States and I'm sure around the world, but I know we want it faster. We want it cheaper. We want it better. We want it now. We want to get it done. It's like the bear is constantly chasing us. And I don't think that we even realize how much stress that we put on ourselves with that internal whip,
Yep.
cattle prod, if you will, going, go, 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 faster, 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 go, get it done. And we've been trained too, like taking a nap is bad. Like you're lazy
Mm.
if you're laying on the couch. It's like, no, actually, before this podcast, I just went and shut my eyes for 20 minutes. So I knew that I would be engaged and ready. And after this, I have another thing. And so it's like, I think that we need to reinvent not only, like you're saying, the supplement industry of like, what is actually working?
Mm.
Like, what are we doing here? What's the food that we're actually eating? Like I said at the top is, we're eating chemicals and calling it food just because there's sugar and some fruit juice in it. Like when did it become okay to just start ingesting chemicals willy-nilly? Um, and I think that anymore I'm going for a walk for my mental health. Like
Mm.
just to check out. Like we have so much going on in our society and there's so much we can pack into a day. And then there's that other job, otherwise known as our phones. Like
Mm.
that's a whole job in itself, is like checking Twitter, checking social media, checking our email. We're constantly available. And when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about this, like that is expending so much garbage into our system. Like we literally would have to eat gallons of turmeric and blueberries a day to try to antioxidant the self. And that's where this molecule is coming in, which is interesting to me because we have, in my opinion, become more toxic, more stressed,
Mm.
more overwhelmed, that it kind of is interesting that this is coming into our world at a time when we are so spent. And also, we are coming into a place where we're living shorter lifespans than the people that came before us. And that's crazy. We have the best healthcare. We have the best food, FDA, all this shit. There's you could just supplement yourself in the next month on Amazon, but we're still living shorter lifespans. We're doing something inherently wrong. It's just interesting that this is coming into fruition into our lives. It's MyVitalC at the same time. I might have to try this stuff. I haven't gotten any from
I'll
you.
send you some.
I'm like, I think that like, if you saw my cabinet, you'd be like, oh my God, this woman is a supplement lunatic.
Yeah. No,
Like
I know
I'm
the feeling.
52.
This desk is less full. This is my kind of podcast room.
Uh-huh.
My other desk is stuff I'm just trying all the time. Like people offer it, they tell me their technology. I'm like, I want to try that, and then it lasts for a little while and then goes away, typically. But yeah, no, I know your feeling, like what you're describing.
Well, because I know, like, I eat very healthy, but it's like it would be a full-time job for me to eat all the stuff that I need to eat in a day to get all the things that I need to get. I'm like, okay, my cholesterol just came back a little wonky. So I'm like, all right, now we're going to try some red yeast rice. And then it's like, now I'm going to try this. And now I'm going to try, pumpkin seed oil to make my hair thicker and regulate my sugar. I'm just like, Lord have mercy. Like it's a full-time job putting out my husband and my supplements in the morning. Like I am a committed supplement taker. I have Incital in there for nighttime. Like I'm doing all the things because it would just be a full-time job to eat all of that. And I can't even imagine. And I also want to, be healthy. Like I had cancer 6 years ago now. I'm on the other side of that. And it's like, okay, I want to do all the things.
Yeah.
And sleep. I want to sleep.
Because you mentioned cancer, I'm going to bring this particular piece up, which is really fascinating. In that original study, a typical Wistar rat lives out 32 months and has a known amount of tumor mass in its body. So the longer it lives, the more tumor mass it has in its body. Even though the MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, none of them had any tumors in their body.
That's
now,
crazy.
I've told that story to people and people have like, cure for cancer. And I say, no. And then I follow that with no. like there's a huge difference between dealing with a cancer that has metastasized and a cancer and being what potentially looks like a cancer preventative. By the way, we know things as simple as good sleep, good nutrition, good exercise are cancer preventatives. This just throws it in that category. Now I'm going to add one more piece. This is a Petri dish study, which is the lowest study, right? I actually look at them lower than anecdotal studies because they're not an animal model. There's a huge difference between kind of migrating from a Petri dish into any sort of animal model, but it's worth sharing. So you take a Petri dish and you have cancer cells and healthy cells in the Petri dish, and you introduce an anti-cancer agent, which is a poison, right? The goal is to poison the cancer cells before the healthy cells. And in the presence of the ESS60 molecule, there's actually increased efficacy against the cancer cells of the anti-cancer agent. So more cancer cells die, and there's protective effects for the healthy cells. So more healthy cells live. Why might that be the case? Well, it turns out that the energy source, and in fact, the way the mitochondria in cancer cells function is fundamentally different than how it functions inside of healthy cells. And we know that we're in mitochondria. We know that we believe, according to the Boss theory, that we're having a reducing the negative impact of healthy cells. Maybe that's actually playing a role in these cancer cells.
Have you done cancer studies? I know there's a I know someone right now that is doing a trial at Mayo, and it's like to stop the cancer from growing, but also to make the chemo more powerful. Have you guys worked on any studies like that yet?
There is so much going on. Like right now, and we're a small company. So just to get this HSCRP study underway, really, so that we can have a little bit kind of stronger marketing literature, so that then we can continue to grow the company. But we're very interested in investing in that kind of research. Like that's really important to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many incurable cancers like leukemia, things of that nature, where these are people that will never be cured. They live with it. It can't, like, you could take chemo till the day that you die, literally, and it's not going to fix the CLL from Roundup. There's a lot of people that are suffering with that. It just would be interesting, like how that helps those types of folks who have nothing else to turn to. Because of the free radicals, because of the toxicity inside the body. It's just like sitting there waiting. That would be an interesting look-see, but I am totally in. So you have your book. You are an author of Live Longer and Better, Your Journey to Living Longer and Better. There we go. So we've got that. And then you are also have a podcast. I didn't write that name down because I don't think it was on your bio.
Yeah, it's called Live Beyond the Norms.
Live Beyond the Norms podcast. So that's everywhere that you can find podcasts.
Yep.
So then we also have MyVitalC, which is on your website. Which did I write that down?
We have a link for you. It's myvitalc.com/Meredith, of course, spelled with a Y. And that is up and running. My team got that put together. There on that page, there is a $15 off coupon. So make sure you go to that page to get that $15 off coupon. I'll tell you a couple of things when you land there. First is we sell our product in olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. My morning routine is I put our MCT. I have kind of like a bulletproof coffee thing, except I don't do the ghee. So bulletproof coffee is a high quality coffee, MCT, and ghee, purified butter. I pull out the purified butter. I don't want the calories. I actually don't like the taste very much, but I put in our MCT. So I put about a teaspoon and a half of our MCT product. And while that's mixing, because it's oil and water, that's mixing, I take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil. So we sell olive oil, avocado oil, MCT oil. When people ask which one should I try, we always say olive oil for two reasons. First, we're a science-based organization, and almost all of the research is on olive oil and the ESS60 molecule. So that's why we steer people that way. Next is there's a higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. So you get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, 0.6 in avocado, and 0.3 in MCT. So that's the two reasons. We do offer a 25% discount if you go on subscription. So even if you just want to try the product once, take advantage of that discount. You can cancel it at any time. Let me just share with you. Our customer service team has about 1,000 five-star reviews on Google. They're not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription, so you can cancel at any time. Most people do not cancel. That's just how our product works. In terms of the book, I have a charity piece of the book that I'm very proud of. So the book, Live Beyond the Norms, is available on Amazon for $20. It's available on our website also, but it's not on that landing page. But so go to myvitalc.com/Meredith, grab that coupon code, go to navigate to the book. And the book is also $20 on our website. For $10 extra, I'll sign the book for you. And 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which was an amazing movie about a horrible topic, which is child sex trafficking, which we should get off of this planet immediately. That Operation Underground is what that movie was about, the organization that movie is about. And so 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. And also on the landing page, I think we need to get your email address, but I've got like 18 biohacking tips, which are kind of born out of me interviewing 55 experts in longevity for my longevity summit.
I love that. And again, he has exercise and recovery. So if you're out there like a crazy worker outer like my daughter is, who's 16, who just got the bug, she's at the gym 2 hours every day.
Good for her.
Then I know she's in it. She's deep. My dad, he's a worker outer. I've always been. So I'm so thankful because you never know if they're going to get that bug, and she's got it. So I'm so proud of her. And then the sleep, which is going to help you during the day, and then when you go to sleep at night. And then I think I saw some sort of like lotion too.
Yeah, we do. So just to share, those products, we call them our targeted products, which are deep sleep, focus and energy, exercise recovery, party recovery. They're actually the same product. It's literally the same formulation. We just do a different marketing box so that we can have different kinds of conversations with different people. But they're exactly the same product. That's what our customers
see, because I would have ordered all of them like an idiot.
And no, not like an idiot. So it took me forever to make this decision, right? And I'm talking years, because I felt like it had to be different. And then if you were to order a bunch of everything, then you would complain, rightfully so. And what I realized is our customer service team and our shipping team, also a lot of the reviews are related to shipping, have 1,000 five-star reviews on Google's. Our shipping team will catch it before it goes out. We'll let you know. And then if you end up with it and you call us and you're upset, we will refund you, right? Because like at the end of the day, we want to have a good, make sure we have a good customer experience. So it did take me a while to actually pull that trigger. And I'll share that I just totally lost my train of thought.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, no.
So I only have to buy one.
Yep.
And all of that happens inside of that one.
Yes. And we recommend, and I do recommend, like, get the bottle, right? So the bottle's in a nice box. It's, it's a full retail product. And that's, again, what our customers told us when we had not for human consumption on the labeling. So when there was no really kind of opportunity for placebo, right? If you give somebody something that says sleep on it, they're going to sleep better. Like like the placebo effect is a fact. It applies to every medication you ever take. It applies to every supplement you ever take. It applies to every workout gear you ever hop on. This will build big biceps. You're actually going to get bigger biceps if you believe it. I mean, so that
Right.
before any of that was in place, our customers like, hey, my knee pain, got to be careful with pain, but they were sharing that. By the way, I haven't said this. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose or prevent any disease. So these are things when it didn't have the kind of marketing message or the placebo message on it. This is what they were telling us, which was pretty amazing. And then you're right. You mentioned, so if I haven't made clear, I didn't really want to be in the supplement space, right? Like I was a happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist. They do this study with this molecule I've been manufacturing for, I don't know, 20 plus years at the time. They thought it would be toxic. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to lived 90% longer. Now I'm in the supplement space. And then my business partner, one of my business partners, came to me and said, hey, we need to do a face serum, because when I consume it, and she would just consume it right out of the bottle, there's a little spillage. So she would take that and wipe it on her face. We already have skin and hair improvements testimonials from people taking our product orally already. Like that was already a thing. So she comes and she says, we should make a face serum. And I'm like, yay, face serum. That sounds amazing. We should do that. And so we did it. And so that's our night serum. And we brought that on the market, again, I was not that enthused about it, I'll be honest. And so we're getting good testimonials about it. And my director of research comes to me and he says, Chris, I found a molecule. It's a peptide. It's got 30 years of skin and hair improvements and peer-reviewed published research. You should look at it. So I go look at it and it's amazing. And I'm like, we need to do this together. Peptide, at least this peptide, is water soluble. Our product is oil soluble. You can shove those things together with what's called an emulsifier. I don't like how an emulsifier sounds. And if you Google emulsifier, there are no health benefits. In fact, it's detrimental. So we decided to keep it separate. So we've got a UTH29 peptide, which, by the way, that stands for Youth 29. I learned later that's the age all women want to stop aging at, like 29. Is that a fair number?
I'll take any number.
Our ESS60 activator. So you do 1 squirt of our UTH29 peptide and then 2 drops per squirt, and you activate it right there in your palm. And that's the thing that I use every day. I've literally had longevity experts come to my booth. This was at A4M in Las Vegas. And like in my mind, what I see them doing is like, yeah, living longer, move that over to the right. Being healthier, move that over to the left. I'm here because I need some more of this.
Oh, trust me. I'm a creator on social media and I'm always laughing. I'm like, my videos that I sit there and talk about, like owning a great pair of jeans and a great pair of slingbacks and, that type of stuff, millions of views. Telling you how to like live a great life and get over your toxic childhood. It's like couple views. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, thinner, faster, cheaper, Chris. I'm telling you, that's what the world wants.
Prettier.
Hey,
men
prettier.
and women,
prettier. It doesn't matter. Just make me good looking. Well, I am so excited that I got to talk to you today. This is right up my alley. Good skin, sleep, live longer, like 1 supplement instead of 30 every single day. My husband would be in heaven. Every day I make a shot glass filled with pills for him. I shit you not. I could take you downstairs. And it's like, did you take your pills? Have you taken your pills? Have you taken your pills yet? Because I'm just like, because he, of course, is not eating right either. So I am super excited about this. I'm so happy that I had you on today. This has been a great conversation. Hopefully it doesn't go over everybody's head. I think everyone can just understand you're going to have better skin. You're going to have better recovery, better focus, better sleep, better everything, maybe even better sex. Who knows? We're going to just throw that out there. I mean, you don't have to drink 30 gallons of turmeric in your coffee and do all that good stuff. It's a one-stop shop. So
turmeric does ruin coffee.
It probably does ruin coffee too. But thank you so very much for being here. And don't forget, guys, you go to myvitalc.com /.
Yep. //
with MEREDYTH, and that's going to give you $15 off. And then make sure and subscribe. You can try it 1 month. If you don't like your subscribe and save, it's going to save you 25%. That's insane. PS, that's like $25, just so you know. I've looked at his prices. Like, this is like a good savings. And then you can cancel anytime, and I will stand by that. Chris stands by that. We'll make sure everything
100%.
happens. So if you have any problems, let us know, and we will get to it. But he says he's got all these 5-star reviews, and I'm gonna agree with that. So I'm excited. Thank you so much for coming on today and bringing all this information to the listeners.
Meredith, thank you so much for having me. It was like great questions. We started on sleep, which is actually near and dear to me also. So thank you so much.
All right, guys. I'll see you here, everybody here next week, and have a beautiful week. Bye. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredithwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredith with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredith with a Y. Thanks again for listening.